truth you find is the key now. Reach your fear and you will all be free now. Community, it's time to get better. You can't avoid it, we're all in this together. Head high, fill your heart with love and light now. Come together and it will be alright now. Come together, you can't run forever. Come together, it's now or it's never. Community, kids are dying in the streets now. Change your mind, unity is all we need now. Community, kids are dying in the streets now. Change your mind, unity is all we need now. Change your mind, unity is all we need now. Change your mind, unity is all we need.
Chris Sanders, the host of Community All Unite TV, yes, on Comcast Cable and Xfinity. We are here again. Xfinity has opened up the doors. Comcast Cable said, come on in and have some drinks. We are here to make some moves and bring some information to the community. These Community All Unite TV interviews are not just for the sake of interviewing. They're for the sake of showing a roadmap for young people and adults to how the people get to the level of success that they have come. Even if they're in the middle of it. I understand when I see people's artwork and I see talent, I know what talent looks like. So I know that they're on the way if they're not there yet. And one of my proteges is in the room with us. And he is the one that introduced us to Red. And Red is a phenomenal talent. His artwork is no joke. I can't wait till you guys see it. I'm going to take some pictures of it afterwards. I also love the fact that he's heavily community minded. He's doing a lot of work in the community. He's college educated, and he's a therapist, right? You're a therapist, counselor. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing when our young people go to HBCUs and come out and they're ready to do big things, because HBCUs, that's what they promote. They promote you to not only be successful, but give back to your community. So we are here, and actually you can find us on channel 190 and 1097. That's Comcast Cable every Thursday from 8 to 8:30. Chris Sanders, your host. And we are here with Red. I love the fact that Jeremiah brought you here. Because, I mean, I know you guys are boys, and y'all came from the same place, and y'all are both becoming successful people because you put yourself in the position to become successful. And this interview in itself is you don't understand, it's going to reach so many people. It might not reach them tomorrow, it might not reach them the next day, but it's going to go out. It's going to keep going out, and it's on YouTube now. We're on YouTube, so this will be there forever as a library for you and your young folk, your kids. When you come up, you'll be able to look back and say, "Oh, look at when your daddy was young and how he just got started and he did his thing." It's a beautiful thing. So I want you to introduce yourself. And I want you to talk about a little bit about your college experience, but I also want you to talk about how you got on this road, this path, and where do you see it taking you, and some of the pitfalls, because people really want to see how you fell down and got back up. So please, Red, introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? Peace. My name is Red. I'm an artist and philosopher from North New Jersey. You asked about college and how I got into the arts. I went to Howard University for undergrad. I studied psychology and philosophy. I was a double major. The real way I got into the arts was I was always in it since birth. I think I was drawing since like kindergarten. I remember doing circles for hands when you do like stick figures. I remember I went to Sussex Ave School. That's in North, and like my earliest memories of drawing was there. After that, growing up, I would always draw like here and there. Like I would draw in a house. I would find people pictures on MySpace, Facebook, and I would just get like a ballpoint pen and just draw in my sketchbook or something like that, and I would share it. If you have access to my old Facebook, I still got drawings up there from probably like 10 and 15 years ago. Then when I graduated from college and I came back to Newark, I was like, what am I going to do to really provide for myself? I got bills. How am I going to live the lifestyle that I want to live? And I would say that's when it really clicked for me. Like, it's one thing to have a natural ability like inclination to do something. It's another thing to take it seriously and then add practice on top. I think it's somebody like LeBron James. He's born with the height. You know, that's something God gave him, and maybe the athleticism is something God gave him. But I think it's different when you deliberately choose to do something like on a daily basis. So that's what really changed for me. I could always draw. I could always see, you know, color variations in an image. I could always identify patterns and stuff like that. The technical side of drawing, or what you would need to replicate an image. But then when I took it seriously and I was like, nah, this is a discipline. I'm gonna do this every day. I'm gonna draw, I'm gonna paint as much as possible. That means 2-3 times a day. I watched the Kobe interview. He said the way that he surpassed all his competition was he woke up a little bit earlier. He would practice 4 times a day instead of 3. 4 times a day over time, over a year span, you just practice way more than somebody practicing 3 times a day or 2 times a day. So I just took it serious, and I grew up playing sports, so I know what it's like to train. I know what it's like to practice, and I just took all my sports knowledge and then I applied it to developing my skills artistically. I don't remember the other question you asked me, but
do you have like a role model, like artists that you really love, that you emulate?
Artistically, no, I wouldn't say a role model. I got artists whose work I admire. Like most of the people on my feed, on my Instagram feed, I admire their work. I don't want to miss nobody's name if I name drop, but it's a lot of people from Kehinde Wiley, who's popular, Bisa Butler, Tyler Ballin. It's a lot. It's so many names. Monica, I don't know her last name, but I think she's from Baltimore. And then you got like, those are like living artists. You got like deceased artists. MC Usher was a big influence growing up because he did optical illusions, and that's what I really was into. Like between optical illusions, and I was a little girl crazy in high school, so I would just draw like women or optical illusions, like try to put them together some way, somehow. But really, nowadays, you don't have to be an artist for me to like learn from you, you know? Like, I wouldn't say I have a role model, like somebody I want to be like, because I kind of admire myself, but I reconnected with my father. That's been like monumental in my life for anybody that grow up, you know, disconnected from your father or whatever. Like, I feel like me reconnecting with him is like reconnecting with myself. I probably chop it up with him the most, like more than anybody else. And he give me game, but he's an artist, but in his own way. Like, he don't draw or paint or nothing like that, but he, you know, he a good person to bounce ideas off. Other than that, I admire people for their business acumen, which is aside from art, because it's one thing to paint a pretty picture. It's another thing to have all your numbers make sense so you can do it sustainably. Like, you're not a starving artist. I think at one point I did kind of admire like that starving artist thing, you know, couch hopping, couch surfing, you don't really got nowhere to stay, your life unstable, whatever the case is. I know you mentioned pitfalls. I wouldn't consider that a pitfall. That's more like part of artist development. I think figuring out how to do this thing on your own, being an entrepreneur, being a full adult, transitioning from like living in a house with your parents to living on your own. Sometimes that starving artist is just a stage that you gotta go through. So that way, you know, like once you finally achieve some type of success, you could always remember that time, and you could use it as fuel to push you. But yeah, I would say philosophically, people I admire. The first lady, I think she's a little racist. I don't admire her for that. I'm just throwing it out there because I'm not encouraging people to like admire her too. But prior to me knowing she was racist, I was introduced to Ayn Rand. She wrote books like Atlas Shrugged, Fountainhead, stuff like that. She wrote books about architects and building and stuff like that. And I actually admire her work because she talked about like rugged individualism, which is a very Western, like European idea, like a white group's idea of like how to survive. It's kind of like, it's just me, you know, it's very self-centered, as opposed to like African schools of thought, so like communalism, like we all in this together kind of thing. But I admire her because between her and Kanye West, just listening to his interviews about like he was saying like, I am God. And then somebody would challenge him. He was like, well, would you rather I say I'm a nigga? Like when I say I'm God, it offends you. If I say I'm a nigga, if I degrade myself, you don't say nothing at all, it's okay. So just their mindsets of like ambition, persevering, pushing through adversity, all of that I kind of got from that. Even though, you know, I'm all for the community, I think at the same time, it's something inspiring about feeling like I'm the master of my own fate. And that's what I got from both of them on the philosophical side.
So now when you came out of college and you said you were starting to focus on art, but you also got your degree to be a clinical therapist, or
yeah.
So how did you do both things at the same time and find balance?
I mean, that's like the story of my life. Like I know how to juggle, like literally I know how to juggle, but that's all it is. It's no different from if you in school. Like I know some people are like anti-school or whatever, but like school taught me a lot. I personally got a lot out of it. Not saying everybody gets the same thing, because some people go to school and don't get nothing out of it. But one thing is like time management, or
so
how
you
to
love
balance
school.
multiple things. I wouldn't say I love school. I love learning. I love when I find something out that makes my life easier. So I love feeling empowered over my environment. Like certain things you learn in school, you walk different because you know stuff.
Right.
As opposed to somebody who lacks knowledge, they might see the world in a different way.
You know, what I'm thinking about right now, I'm about to tell you something. It's just a little shocking. As I watch you talk, and I'm sitting here and looking at you, I think of Black Jesus. That's crazy. I'm thinking about Black Jesus, right? I want to draw you, bro. I want to draw you as Black Jesus with the thorns on your head and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it as a compliment.
Anybody say that to you before?
All the time, but I mean, I don't feel like I look any more like Black Jesus than any black man with locks. It's a million black men with locks.
If there was an image of black, you know, because I know you know that there was I think it was King James that gave a commission for an artist to draw. I think it was a sun. I forgot what the name of the sun was.
I know you're talking about.
But yeah, because of course he looked at the sun as somebody that was beautiful, and he wanted to, you know, have him as the symbol of Jesus. And when I look at you, if I wanted to draw anybody that I'd say that I'd want to have on my wall, it would be you. And it probably you could do the whole thing. He could probably do the with the loincloth,
shirt off,
and just like that. You probably got the
that's for the ladies.
You probably got the 6-pack and everything. So yeah, that's a little sidebar, right?
No,
he's gonna be my hopefully my subject to do a Black Jesus. So I'm gonna put, when that comes out, Chris Sanders's Black Jesus. This is the young man that's gonna be there. Isn't that nice? That's gonna be nice. All right, back to what we were talking about. So you were balancing doing artwork, you know, on the off hours or when you weren't studying, and doing, you know, going to school for was it some psychology or was it for social work?
I got my master's in counseling from NYU for mental health and wellness.
Okay. And so did you get all A's, or did you struggle with some class?
I graduated 4.0.
Goodness gracious. You know what I'm saying?
They care about, like, once you get past undergrad, I don't know if GPA really matters unless you decide to go back to school.
It matters not only to the school, because they like to salute young folks that have come from urban communities and they've made it in their lives. They want to promote you, and when they promote you, they're going to possibly be saying this. This is a 4.0 grade point average individual that not only was, you know, from an urban community and was possibly struggling as he was doing it financially. You got a full ride, right?
No.
How was financially? How did you?
Financially, I took out loans. As far as, that's what I'm saying. Like, counseling is one of, like, maybe in the STEM field, it might be more scholarship opportunities. I also probably could have done more research as far as looking for scholarship opportunities, but I paid for that out of loans. I mean, good. So that's what I'm saying. Like, GPA matters, but sometimes when it comes to the numbers, it really don't matter if you got straight A's or straight C's. Like, at the end of the day, on the business side, you'll know the customer.
When you got your master's, so you were going to get your doctorate?
Recently I did get accepted into a neuropsychology PhD program at Howard University.
Oh, okay. And I know they looked at your grades.
Yeah, definitely. But I think for their decision, they look more at undergrad than graduate. Because I think along the way in the PhD program, you get they give you another master's too.
Sure. Got it. So now why'd you pick Howard? You could probably pick any school.
Well, there's not too many schools that offer a PhD program in neuropsychology. Howard is one of them. Also, I'm familiar with the faculty. I went there for undergrad. And then, like, sometimes it's bigger than just doing something. Like, I feel like if you could live your life, die, and come back and live it again, you might do something, like, you might do the same thing, but with a little bit more style. Sometimes I think it's like a flavor to it. Like, I think it's meaningful to do stuff at HBCU specifically that brings more funding to them, that brings more support to them, that also lets people know, like, these are legitimate schools. Some people look at them like second-class schools, but they're really not. Like, I think me going there, I get to be around Black faculty, Black psychologists. I get to talk to them about what's really going on in psychology, what do y'all go through, and stuff like that. I mean, I feel like PWIs are predominantly white institutions. They're good too. I'm not throwing no shade to them, but I think sometimes the more stuff we do in-house as a people, the better. Like, the more times it's us working with us and us learning from each other and building together, and we build our own things that are like ours, like Black spaces. I feel like that's great.
So when you're in school and you're reading the I guess it's the whatever subject matter that you have to study to come up with some type of thought process on how to analyze that person, or come up with a thesis of what is that person's problem and how we're going to go about fixing that problem. How much more advanced are you than the rest of the students because of the fact that you come from an urban environment and have dealt with so many different struggling individuals?
I don't know.
You can't tell? I mean, you look at it and you probably have other people to say, oh, well, the reason why he's going through that is, even a white person that has analyzed the person, he's going through that because he's such and such, such and such. But you were like, that's not why he's going through that, because he's going through that because he went through his mama dealing with crack, and then these drug dealers shooting at him at the same time as he's walking to school. He's going for the PTSD and all that stuff. Yeah. That's why he's going through that.
Yeah, so with that, it's kind of tricky depending on who you talking to, like who's the client, who's their family, their background. It gets so specific that my background can help for some, but it might not help for others. Whereas that white person or somebody growing up in a middle class background or upper class background, they might be ideal for certain clients. It depends. I think sometimes when it comes to counseling, like you connect with people on a soul level. On a soul level, this person may have a totally different walk of life, but they might be able to say the things you need to hear the way you need to hear them for it to click. I could say the same thing, but because of who I am, it may or may not click, and vice versa. Sometimes it comes down to that. When I was working in North Public Schools, I was an art therapist and an art teacher. So I had like two hats that I wore, but I created like a hybrid class. It was called Chill Art Therapy. And so it was mainly about social emotional learning. So that was like the main thing, but it also gave students the opportunity to earn credits to graduate. So in that classroom, that's when I really helped me hone my counseling skills. And like doing like group counseling basically in a classroom setting. Also worked I interned at Prodigal Sons and Daughters Behavioral Health Care Center, Behavioral Health Care Services in East Orange. And that was like drug treatment, rehab kind of thing. So I got to work with like that 16 to 22 range and that 18 to 60 range on a variety of problems. Some of them overlap. In those spaces, my background definitely helped. Growing up in Newark, seeing violence, understanding the streets, understanding like depression, anxiety, PTSD, like you mentioned, and understanding racism, which I think is like the underlying catalyst for a lot of the things. Like it exacerbates everything we go through. So like sometimes talking to a youth about something they're going through, they might look at it like like they looking at a tree, but understanding racism, you can see the forest. Like I know why that tree is there. I know why everything you experience in this textbook. I had students in and out of the, prison system. I could see firsthand the school to prison pipeline because I'm in a school setting and I'm seeing them coming in and out. They come to class one day, next day they might go to the, whatever happened over the weekend, whatever happened, they come back and it was like a very thin line. Even growing up, I went to Catholic school most of my time. So my experience in Catholic school is kind of like a bubble in a way. You still get, it's still students in Catholic schools that do what they do. But I think part of it does take away a lot of it, just based off school size. Catholic school might have 300 kids. Public school gonna have like 3,000 kids. Yeah. So just that alone would just give you a little bump up, like a little extra advantage as far as like being able to focus. And I think getting into the public school system as a teacher, I got to see like some of the stuff I ain't really had to deal with. Like it wasn't no riots at my high school. It wasn't no fights and nothing like that. We didn't have metal detectors. Like you came to school, did your work, you went home. We didn't have to worry about as much. So I say all that to say, like, yeah, I do feel like my background helps in terms of counseling. I can't say that my background is the supreme background to help everybody, but I do speak to a certain demographic that I can relate to.
Right. I think one of the things I found, I know a lot of counselors, and actually teachers are like counselors. That's part of their role, if they truly have passion for the young folks. And I asked them, what do you do with the problem child? The one in the student in your class that is acting up, that that wants to get attention because he's not getting it at home, so he wants to get it from the classroom. And then sometimes he might want to be bad in your class so that he could talk to you. He wants to talk to you, and sometimes you're busy and he can't get to you if he don't act up, and you could say, oh, you're gonna stay after class and we could talk. Sometimes you don't know why they're doing it, but what do you do to remedy that?
I feel like that's gonna be on a case-by-case basis.
Yes.
From my perspective, every problem child needs something different. I mean, maybe it's the same in a general form, but I would have to actually know them and talk to them to answer that. One student pops up in my head, I'm not gonna say his name, but I never figured out what he needed for real. Like, all I could do was be there and listen, but he didn't wanna talk. So I could just be here. Like it would be times he would skip class. I remember one time specifically, and if you seeing this, then you probably know it's you. But like I remember one time I caught him skipping class, and I was like, if I beat you in this basketball game, you gotta go back to class. So we went to the gym, and we played 1-on-1. Like mind you, he like my height. It's a high school, but he was like 18. So he an adult. So we played. I lost. But even though I lost, I feel like he probably did go to class. I didn't follow him, but I'm like, you probably tired. You want to sit down now. You probably gonna go to class anyway, even though, you beat me. So I think it depends. It's on a day-to-day basis. One thing they might need one day, they might not need the other. Like sometimes it's tricky with teaching and like in a school like setting. Sometimes it's tricky because you're a mandated reporter. You might have your own kids. It's certain stuff they can't tell you. It's certain stuff you probably don't really want them to tell you because you're a mandated reporter. So it's only so much room that you have, and they aware of that. So they know, like, I got robbed yesterday. Am I gonna tell my teacher? What can my teacher really do for me? So I think the disconnect sometimes is, especially in Newark, like growing up that teenage years, sometimes people really living in a war zone. And I think teachers sometimes disconnect from, like, imagine you signed up for the military and you went to this place and your loved ones are dying. So now you carrying whatever you need to carry out of fear and out of prevention. That's your life insurance. So I think sometimes the experience that the students go through is so different from the experience of the staff and the adults around them. Sometimes you can't really speak to what they're going through. It's good when you can find like old heads that been in the streets, that seen the ups and the downs, that can see the youth like, yo, and talk to them and they relate to it. Like we had a couple staff members that could relate to the students on that level. I can relate to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to jail, so
Right.
I can't tell you about jail.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you about things I've been through and,
Yeah.
you know, my experiences. So I think it depends. I think it's tough, but for the problem child, they might need something different, and they might need a specific person to say it to them. Even if you said it 1,000,000 times, it might have to come from this one person.
Sure. Now, it was something that Jeremiah was saying that he was going to ask you as far as, you know, your artwork. And I'm going to ask it for him. He's in the room, but I want to make sure that, you know, we stay within our time. The Brianna piece that you did and the George Floyd piece, what do you feel when you're doing those pieces? Do you feel the emotion of the act that you're dealing with, or is it just replicating an image?
Forgot one thing.
Well, no, that's okay.
So for me, I didn't actually draw Breonna Taylor's face, and I didn't draw George Floyd's face either. I feel frustrated, or I felt frustrated in those times. I felt like, what are we gonna do? I was like very inquisitive, like trying to figure out like what can I do to help my people, because it was getting real egregious what they was doing to us, killing us for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they always been killing us for no reason. We came to this country enslaved. Some of us was already here, and then they convinced us to, you know, they enslaved us, or they, you know, they had power, whatever the case is. So it's just a lot of frustration. It's like James Baldwin. I think James Baldwin said, like, to be black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. So that's what I felt, like anger, like frustration. I can't really say disappointment, because what else could you really expect in America? Like, I feel like what we witnessed with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor was like on par for the American brand. Like throughout history, we've seen the same thing. Emmett Till ain't no different. Rodney King, like it's been going on for a long time. So the works that came out of that was like, first it started with questions. My question was, what can I do to give myself and my people reparations? Because the government not gonna do it. So that's when I came up with the idea of doing a stimulus package tour. I already had a project which is called Stimulus Package, where I was like going to bus stops and I would put a canvas up at the bus stop and I'll paint right there. I did it like all throughout Newark. I did it in other states. Like I was moving around, but I was doing like once a week. The tour, like Stimulus Package tour, was, I think I left like sometime in July, from like July to September, or like August to September. It was like a month's time. I went to like 40 different cities. I drove from New Jersey down the East Coast to Atlanta, then to the West Coast, all the way to Tijuana, Mexico, LA. And I drove north to Salt Lake City, and I drove through the Midwest, like Colorado, Chicago, Flint, Detroit. I tried to go to Canada, but the borders was closed at the time. And then I came back through like Pittsburgh, Allentown, and back to Newark. When I got to Newark, I did a painting. That's where I set the world record for the longest time spent painting live on canvas. So I painted for 24 hours straight, right here at Broad and Market. But all of that was frustration. Even as I was going from city to city, police would harass me and be like, you need to move, you can't do that. And I'm like, I'm painting. Like, what's illegal about painting? Which they could never really, they could never explain to me, but sometimes police be on power rather than logic. Sometimes it's like, just do what I say, because I'm telling you to do it.
Right.
But for me, you know, I'm educated. Looking at me, they might not assume that. They might be like, just another nigga, like, move out the way, like, we don't want you doing this here. But I'm like, who am I really hurting by painting? This is my way. George Floyd happened, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, too many names to name. And so I feel like me going out painting would inspire my people, you know, like give us some positivity, like lift us back up. Or like somebody see me doing that and they got talents and abilities that they got in the cut, but they don't use them. They just sitting on the shelf. So it's like inspiring you, like, yo, take your talents and your gifts off the shelf, like put them in practice. But then also the other thing is like contemplating the idea of street justice or other forms of justice apart from what the system has set up. Like the system has its own, it's like a dog chasing its tail. Like the system does something wrong and then it tries to correct itself. But you can't just let it correct itself. It needs some outside something to change what's going on, because that loop is just not working.
Sure.
I think George Floyd's murderer got charged. That's the first one in a long time. And even with that, it's like, it's not really, that's like ejaculating but not orgasm.
Right.
Like, we got it, but you don't really feel it. Like, why? First of all, we had to work for that. Like, why we gotta work for a layup? So, just the idea of like, I think of genres of movies like horror films and stuff like that. So, even Batman, they kill cops. I believe like the Joker, he killed certain people, the chief deputy or whatever. So it made me wonder, like, imagine if George Zimmerman had 300 black people show up at his doorstep, like, you're accountable for what you did.
Yeah.
Or if George Zimmerman gets off, imagine if 300 black people show up at the jurors' doors, at the judges' doors, at the prosecutors' doors, at the whoever, like, the defense forum door. Imagine if we were like boots on the ground, we actually were here to influence people and get some type of real justice that we have in our hands.
Yeah. So I'm gonna wrap it up because I think we need to do a part 2 or something and include Jeremiah on this next one. But yo, we had a great conversation. And I think that what you were just saying is justice needs to be has to be had. It has to be promoted. Every time there's something wrong, there has to be a balance, and there has to be something that will bring back some equilibrium. Because of course we're just so tilted, so lopsided that it's becoming a wave of injustice, and until we are able to kind of calm down the waters, it's going to be some bad times ahead. And I'm so happy about the HBCU thing, man. I do think that you should go back and go to HBCU. A lot of people say, oh, you went to HBCU, now you should go to Duke or to Harvard or something, so you can at least see what the other side, is like, because that's where you learn about that network, because there's a network for folks that are really, with deep pockets. And if you're an artist, if you love art primarily, then of course you'll have the network to get folks to buy your art. I mean, not saying that you're not going to be successful, because of course there's abundance everywhere. You can create your abundance. But I want to say that we thank you for your time. We know it's valuable, and we have some beautiful artwork that we're going to also take pictures of and show and post. And I hope, where can they find you on the IG?
You can find me on my website, themuseumofred.com, I'm on Instagram and Facebook at fineart.red. I'm also on TikTok, fineart.red.
All right, Community All Unite TV, another successful interview. And we are on every Thursday from 8 to 8:30 on channel 190 and 1097. And we want to thank you for tuning in. Please go to our YouTube channel and, of course, subscribe and like and share and comment. And we will be back again next Thursday. Over and out.
Community.